Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial on how to master your songs on Ableton Live and Logic Pro 10. So for the purpose of this video, we are going to use stock plugins to master your songs. So what is mastering? So mastering is basically the last step before distribution, and it's also like the final polish of your song. So it has basically two goals. The first goal is, like I said, this sort of a polish of your song once you finish your mix and you're ready to get it mastered. Is this basically gonna help give that final sound on your record? So that's the first goal. And the second goal is to provide a consistency in the volume. There's different type of mastering for different medium. And in this tutorial, we're going to cover the mastering in the box using stock plugins. So the first thing that is really important when you want to get your song mastered is you really need to get a good mix. This is really important. Your mix needs to be balanced. It needs to sound good. A mastering is not going to save your song. Sometimes it can, but most of the time you'll know that if you don't have a good mix, your master is not going to do wonders. So get the mix done right, get the proper level and balanced, and then you will be able to master it and get the most out of it. Sometimes mastering, in some cases, is not necessarily required for some mixes. Sometimes a very good mix can be destroyed by mastering. You lose that sort of vibe that the song used to have. So it's a kind of a balance that you need to find, and something that is really important is to trust your ears. This is probably the most important aspect of making music. So once you have your song finished and mixed, what you want to do is basically export the final stereo file and give enough headroom to the mastering engineer. In general, like a good rule of thumb is to have around -6 dBs of headroom before you go into the mastering process. In that case here, we have a trap instrumental that we're gonna master. I'm gonna play for you real quick, and I'll show you what I mean by the 6 dBs of headroom. So you can see basically that the song is hitting around -6 dBs, sometimes a bit lower. When the kick comes in, it goes up to -6 dBs, but that's okay. So when it comes to start the mastering process, everyone is really different. Some people will compress first, some people will EQ first. It really depends how you want to process it. So here in this example, we're going to start by EQing first. So we have our master chain here where there's a spectrum analyzer where you can basically see the frequency of your song, the overall shape of your song in terms of frequencies. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm basically going to loop the section that is the loudest. And then I'm just going to go all over it and gonna start with some EQing. So the first EQ I'm gonna do just a basic stereo EQ, just to remove the rumble of the low end and some of the frequencies that I don't really like. So let's do this. just want to make sure you remove all these frequencies at the bottom. So now I'm just going to do some frequency sweep just to see if there's something that I don't really like. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me so far. One thing that is really important when you master is everything is about subtle changes. You don't want to boost the low end by 6 dBs or like change drastically the EQing. It has to be very subtle changes so you won't destroy what the original mix was. So once we've done this first EQ, basically, we're going to do a second one, but this time we're going to do a different type of processing. So in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to switch to mid-side processing. So for those who don't know what mid-side processing is basically EQing basically the stereo field, any information that is stereo, and this is obviously on the side, and on the mid is basically everything that is mono. In that example here, what we're going to do is remove some of the frequencies on the sides that we don't need, that can cause some problems. So I'm just going to do this real quick for you. That sounds pretty good. And another cool thing about mid-side is like when you boost the sides, then your song becomes more, it becomes wider basically. So I'll show you that. Obviously this is really extreme, but you get the idea, you see? How things starts to sound more wide, sound wider. So here I'm just going to boost that a little bit. If you have like a stereo imaging plugin, like in Ozone 9 for instance, this is going to be much easier, or not much easier, but maybe much cleaner. But in that case, as we're using stock plugins, this is probably the way to go. Yeah, I'll do something like that. Then we're going to process the mids. And for the mids, what I usually like to do is just to boost the low end a little bit. Okay, so let's hear, we're just gonna group these two and just hear the difference before and after. So that's now, and that's before. Very subtle changes, but then this is how you're gonna achieve a nice master. Second is dynamics. So in general, what you would like to do is control the dynamics. So in that case, we're going to use the glue compressor. So when you do mastering, you don't want to over compress your song. You just want to have like 2 to 3 dBs of gain reduction or something like this. You don't want to go too hard. And what you want to do is have a slow attack so you can have enough transient coming in, but you want to have a fast release. So the compressor can catch the following transients. As a rule of thumb, I usually start like this and then I adjust just to see how it sounds. You can see the needle starts to move, and you want to go not much that in the middle, okay? Between 0 and 5. You don't want to go too much. Let's try different settings. You see, like, this is a bit too much. Let's see the release. Yeah, there's a nice compression over here. And then what you can do is like basically compensate with the makeup gain. You want to do a little bit of gain staging basically. That's here. That's not bad. So if I add this to the chain here and we do the before after, so that's before. And that's after. Then what I suggest to do is to give a little bit of warmth. So for this we're gonna use a saturation, and we're gonna cheat a little bit here. We're gonna use a preset by the saturation here. But to start with, I'm gonna put the volume down because it's gonna be very loud. And then we're gonna adjust the dry and wet until we get a very nice warmth to the sound. So let's just hear how it sounds. As you can see, we still have a lot of headroom on the master, which is nice. This is gonna allow us to make it very loud. You can see all these harmonics are coming. You see here, you can see this on the spectrum. It's much more harmonics. That sounds pretty good to my ears. I like it. So once again, the before and after. So that's before. That's after. So now we slowly getting to the final step of that mastering process. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically just put a special plugin called Ulean. So this is a plugin that's gonna allow you to see where you are in terms of loudness, and that's gonna give you an idea. Now we're gonna put a limiter in here and see how far we can push it. The ceiling, we're gonna put it at -1 because that's a safe place for streaming platforms. And now we're just gonna push the song until it gets loud. I go too far, you start getting like very bad distortion and overcompression. So I just need to find that right balance. I'm gonna check how you lean. Okay, so we are around -8 LUFS, which is pretty loud, but it's not a problem. Okay, so something that we can do is do a little bit before after the processing. So that's our track, original song, and what I did is like did some level matching so we can hear the difference. So that was a song before. And that's our song now. Before and now. Before and now. So yeah, so this is a very, very subtle change, but all these little steps are going to make a big difference in the long run. And if you look at the metering, you want to look at the LUFS integrated, but you want to do this over the entire song, not necessarily just on a section. That will give you a little idea where you are in terms of loudness. And what you need to know is that on platforms like Spotify, what they're going to do is they're going to turn it down to -14 LUFS. Apple Music is going to turn it down to -16 LUFS, but this is just because they want to have a consistent sound across the platform. But it's better to get your song lower down rather than them turning the volume up, because you don't really know what they use to turn it up. So it's better to be a bit louder and they just like turn it down rather than doing the opposite. So yeah, so just a little recap. So what we did some stereo EQing where we removed the low end and the frequency that we don't like. We did some mid-side EQing where we boosted the highs a little bit on the sides and a little bit of the bottom end on the mids. We did some glue compression just to control the dynamics and make the song sound more cohesive. And then we did a little bit of saturation by adding a little bit of warmth. And then we just used the limiter to get to the loudness that we want, and obviously limiting the song so it doesn't clip. So that's it for Ableton Live. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will now switch to Logic Pro 10. So see you in a second. Hey guys, welcome back. In this second part of the video, we're gonna master our song in Logic Pro 10. So just to do a little recap again, the concept is the same as in Ableton Live. We're gonna do some EQ processing, so in stereo EQing, then mid-side EQing, and then we're gonna do some compression, and then saturation, and finally some limiting. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some meters on the master track. I'm going to put a loudness meter, and I'm going to put a level meter, and I'm going to turn this into peak and RMS. And the same way as we did in Ableton, we're going to play the song when it's the loudest and then start our mastering process. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add a channel EQ to start with, and this one we're gonna put it as a mid only. Once again, very subtle changes. Using wide bands. Okay, so that was our first EQ. Then let's go to the second one to process the sides. We're gonna roll off all this low end, and we're gonna boost the top end. Alright, now we're gonna go and use the compressor, and in that case we're gonna use the VCA Vintage, which is also an emulation of a bus compressor. So in that case here, I'm just gonna turn off the auto gain and all these things. I'm gonna keep it at 2 dBs, a ratio of 2, sorry, and then we're just gonna play with these knobs until something sounds good. So remember, once again, light compression. You don't want to over compress the song. You just want to control the dynamics of the song, and then just try to match the loss of the volume basically with the makeup gain. So let's do this. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. You can also play with this knob here, with the soft distortion, just to see what it does. It's pretty nice. Do a little before and after. much as well. Soft is nice and subtle. Once again, it's very important to be subtle. Okay, next step, I'm gonna add some distortion. We usually use the overdrive. And once again, we're gonna go super, what's it called? Like really, really careful and subtle. Too much already. All right, so what we can do, sometimes it's also nice to use a little, you can start with a preset, like warm drive. This is gonna be too much. You can see, let's see, a creamy tube maybe, and see how this sounds, and then we can just dial the drive. Don't forget we added already a little bit of distortion with the compressor, so we just need to be careful. Here, for instance, I feel like it doesn't need too much compression here. Not compression, sorry. But here, as you can see, it doesn't really need too much saturation, so I'm just gonna remove this. And what I could do actually is like add another EQ, but this is a cool one that you have in Logic Pro. So I will go to Vintage EQ, and I'll go Vintage Tube EQ, Stereo. And this is really to give a little bit of a tone to the track, so let's see what we can do with it. So let's say, sometimes it's good to try a preset and then see what happens. I like this one, sounds pretty good. What I can do is maybe dial back this here. Just boost this a tiny bit. That sounds pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie. And so last step, some dynamics with the limiter. I'm gonna put my output level to -1 and see how far we can go. jump in terms of volume, but you can feel the difference. So there you have it. This is how you can master your song within Logic Pro 10. So just a little recap, a little bit of EQing, EQ processing the mids, then processing the sides, just to make the track a little bit wider. Like I said at the beginning of the video, or doing the Ableton one, if you have a plugin that is a stereo imager, like you can have it in Ozone, for instance, you're gonna have a bit more control in terms of the frequency bands that you want to basically boost, let's say, widen, or make it more mono. You can do this as well. So after this, we did some glue compression, where we control the dynamics. Then we added a little bit of distortion, soft distortion, and the final step was using the limiter, just to get to that loudness that we desire. So yeah, once again, you want to look at the integrated LUFS for the loudness across your entire song, not just the loudest one. You want to see roughly where you are. Little recap again, Spotify is gonna have your song around minus 14 LUFS, and Apple Music around minus 16 LUFS. And it's not a problem if you are a little bit louder than minus 14 or minus 16. It's better to have these platforms turn you down than turn you up, because you don't know how they're going to turn your song up. You don't know what type of algorithm they're going to use, because they're not going to have someone who's going to do it for you. Another thing that you can check is called loudness penalty, where basically you're going to put your song in there and it's going to tell you if it's too loud for Apple Music or too loud for Spotify, and they're just going to give you a penalty if you're too high. But this is going to be really handy just to see where you're at in terms of loudness for your song and for these specific platforms. So once you master your track, try it in this thing, try it in your car, on crappy speakers, on your iPhone, on your laptop. Adjust the different components and settings. And once again, it is really important to trust your ears. If it feels good, if it sounds good, just trust it. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.